What's up, Badger fans? I think we need to readjust how we're looking at the portal, especially in context with last year's class. Plus, a enormous target is going to decide on Wednesday if it's going to be the Badgers. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. I really do appreciate y'all. It is a fun time of the year. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up this week, we have early signing day, a bunch of content, and we still have transfer portal stuff going on. I want to start there, and this is a conversation Justin and I were going to have, Justin Jolka. It's something that came up in the subtext. A really sharp member of our subtext talked about this. I think at times we're looking at what happened in the portal last year and not giving it enough credit, and then we're prescribing that to what's going on this year. So let me explain what I'm talking about. People generally that I've interacted with, and it's a function of our expectations for last year, but people generally look at the portal haul last year with disappointment. Right now they say, we got so excited for those 15 players last year. It didn't work out. It didn't make us better. I'm not going to get excited this year. And I would say, hold up a little bit. Hold up on those 15 players. The portal didn't work for us last year. Why would it work this year? I would argue the portal kind of did work for us last year. Listen, did it live up to our full expectations, some of which is my fault and all of our faults for maybe overhyping it a little bit? Sure. But did the team get better with the portals? Let's individually look at all these players they got last year. And it's a concept I've talked about a lot this year. Not every portal guy needs to be a home run. If it's a double, right? If it's a layup and not a three-pointer, for example, let's switch up our sports analogies. Maybe it's the 7-10 split in bowling. You didn't get the strike. Is that right in bowling? I don't know much about bowling. My point is a lot of these players improved depth at key positions. Even if they weren't stars, they made the team better because they played, and they played because they were better than the other people they were there with. So when we look at this year's portal, right, we need a little more realistic expectations. We got a little excited last year. And by the way, it wasn't just the portal that got us excited last year. It was Fickell coming in. It was a home run coaching hire. And then you had Phil Longo. Like, it was a lot of things that got us jazzed. In addition to all of this transfer portals and these 4-star quarterbacks coming in, it was a lot of stuff. It wasn't just that the portal, it was all happening so fast that we kind of got swept up in it a little bit. But don't let last year's transfer portal class make you think that it's not going to work this year or that it didn't work last year. So let's go over it, right? I broke it into 4 categories. All the players last year, big upgrades to the team. They helped the team. They're stashed in the freezer, which sounds kind of creepy now that I think about it, and did not help. What I mean by stashed in the freezer, I just mean they're percolating, right? There's some players the staff brought in that I think they knew weren't going to help right away, but were more long-term pieces. They like the upside. A guy like Quincy Burrows, for example, he wasn't brought in to play last year. He was brought in to play this year and the year after. So let's look at those 15 players. How many of them actually helped the team in the portal last year? And again, that's the whole point, right? You just need talent. You need to make the rooms better. Not every player that you bring in the portal is a star, but if it makes the team better, it works. And you have to look at it like that this year as well. Does it make the team better? If it does, then you got to argue it's working. Okay. So I have 2 transfer portal guys from last year's class that I consider big upgrades. They helped the team. That was Will Pauling and Nathaniel Bakos, sorry. I'm still working on that. Both those guys really helped the team, right? Will Pauling was the best receiver on the team this year, third down specialist, got open, and Bakos gave you a solid kicker. Both of those were big upgrades from the portal. I don't think you would argue that. Now, Vakos down the stretch, it was a little weird. Seemed like the coaches went away from giving him those 50-yard plus opportunities, but he had a back thing going on, and I'm pretty sure that's why that wasn't happening. All right, these guys helped the team. They helped the depth. Forkrin, Tanner Mordecai, Bryson Green, Petroyski, Huber, Mabrey. That's 6 guys right there that all played significant roles, right? If you add that in with the 2 that were big upgrades, you're already at 8 dudes. That's already half that portal class really helped the team last year. Now, you could say, did Mordecai really help the team? I know there's people who weren't very high. Yes, of course he did. He was the most ready quarterback. That's who Phil Longo wanted to run the offense. Like, yes, he absolutely helped the team. Did he live up to expectations? No, but that's different than did he make the team better? Would the team have been worse if he wasn't there? Yeah, it would have been. Like, the quarterback room wouldn't have been as good. Now, The one counter argument to that is there is an opportunity cost to getting a guy, right? It means you don't get somebody else. So you could argue maybe that was the problem. Like they got the wrong guy, but Mordecai made the team better last year. Like he absolutely did. And if he wasn't on the roster, it would have been a shallower, not as good of quarterback room. Bryson Green played a lot when he got healthy. He played a lot because he was better, more physical than the other receivers. Nazar Forkrin, Jason Mabrey played big roles in the secondary in the 2 deep. They played a lot, especially as the season went on. I thought Mabrey was pretty good. And I thought Forkrin got better as the season went on. But Troyski played a lot. He outplayed incumbent players on the roster because he was better. Joe Huber played a lot. These are all guys that made the team better. And I think fans in general, to some degree, look back at those guys as failures in the transfer portal. No, they made the team better. There were singles and doubles. Again, Pauling was a home run, right? But there were a lot of singles and doubles in this portal class last year that made the team better. And I think that gets lost. And because that gets lost, fans kind of look at this year's transfer portal with much more skepticism and frustration. Like, oh, Van Dyke, it didn't work with Mordecai. And I guess what I'm saying is it didn't work as well with Mordecai as we hope, but Mordecai did make the team better, and that's what I think Van Dyke does. He makes the team better. Let's go into the stashed in the freezer. I really should change that. We'll say growing in the garden, right? It's not ready for a harvest yet. That sounds less creepy. Michael Mack, obviously, the Air Force did not approve his transfer thing. He's going to be your next year. Quincy Burrows, Braden Locke, Nick Evers. And you could argue to put Braden Locke in the he helped the team category because he came in when Mordecai got hurt and he provided decent backup reps, but he's really brought here for the long term. He wasn't brought here to play last year. So you have these other players that could still contribute. I think Quincy Burrows specifically is going to be a player. Michael Mack, I think, is going to help. A lot of starting experience, a bigger cornerback. So that group of transfer portal players last year that helped the team could grow even more. And then you got these I put in the category I just said did not help, did not live up to expectations. They weren't supposed to be developmental guys. Darian Varner, he was injured. I think that got off to a slow start, but for whatever reason, it just never clicked with Darian Varner. He never provided the pass rushing or the push that we had hoped he would. Jake Renfro, that's an obvious one. Again, not his fault. If you're hurt, you're hurt. But he was definitely a dude brought in to be a starting center. And again, there's opportunity cost to all of these players, right? When you bring somebody in, you allot a certain amount of NIL to them. You allot a certain amount of resources to them. Maybe there was a different center you could have got, and you went for Renfro. Again, no staff is going to bat 1,000, but yeah, like that was a miss. That did not help the team, and center was a problem for a lot of the year. CJ Williams, I put into this category because I do think he was expected to come in and play a little bit more. Now, he's also could continue. He's only a true sophomore. Like there's growth potential for CJ Williams. So he could end up moving up and being a hit as well. I think that's the 15 players. Most of them are either still developmental guys that could develop, or they helped the team, or they were that was a successful portal haul is my point. And I think fans tend to be too down on that group because it wasn't as full of stars as we had hoped, as I'd hoped, right? You can say it didn't live up to expectations, but did it still help the team? Yes. And I think this year's portal class is also going to help the team, even if, again, we may need to recalibrate how we look at some of these pickups, right? It's not about bringing in stars that they're the guys that maybe help depth in certain spots. I don't know. It's just a different way to look at it potentially. Let me know what you think. I do think the portal class last year, when you go back and look at it, really did help this team. And we're probably a loss or two worse if we don't have those guys. I truly believe that. And it makes it successful. Like it got the team better. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, talk about Ernest Willor Jr., a huge defensive lineman that is going to be deciding on Wednesday where he's going to go play his college ball. Wisconsin is right in the thick of that. Plus a bunch of your comments coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors, listen, it is the number one place for all your car parts and car people. Passion, drive, patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, leveled up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, everything you absolutely need, whether you're into speed, power, style, maybe all of the above. eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. That's ebaymotors.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about Ernest Willor Jr. here. This is a big one, Badger fans. This Ernest Willor Jr. is a big one. So 6'3", 260. I think he's actually a little bigger than that. 4-star defensive lineman coming out of the Maryland area. He's been to campus at Wisconsin, some crystal balls to Wisconsin. He also has Maryland kind of in his top group. That's the hometown school. Badger fans know you can never discount the hometown school with all of our years of hometown recruiting and that kind of aspect of football, right? Players like having their families nearby. That's an obvious. But this is a huge target. What have we talked about consistently and continually? Please get more defensive linemen. Please get more cornerbacks. Well, they've done a pretty good job on the quarterback front, right? You look at those dudes. Hopefully you hold on to Xavier Lucas. That's a really big one. I think he's my favorite cornerback in this class. Him and Agard are kind of 1A, 1B. I don't know exactly how to rank them. But Ernest Willor Jr., like, these are the type of defensive linemen that the elite schools get. And let me break it down even further, right? He's a 4-star prospect, number 17 defensive lineman in the country, according to the 247 composite. 17. Really quickly, here's where the defensive linemen around him in the recruiting rankings are going to. Number 15 is going to Oklahoma. Number 16 is going to Notre Dame. 17 is Ernest Willor Jr. Number 18 is going to Stanford. Number 19 is going to Penn State. 20 is going to Georgia. 21 as an Oregon crystal ball. 22 is going to Georgia. 23 is going to Georgia. 24 will miss 20. My point is he is ranked right in the middle of that elite defensive line group. Right? He is a 4-star defensive lineman with versatility, size, power, disruptive traits. He looks great. He carries the weight really well. He's explosive and powerful. I think he can play kind of inside and outside. He's definitely got the ability to stonewall an offensive lineman, string out a play, hold a point, right, and be that stout run defender. But he also has burst. He can get after the passer. He can be disruptive. He's got violent hands, so he can really get off that offensive lineman. Maybe a guy who plays a little on the edge in first and second down and moves inside as a pass rusher on third and long. I don't know. This is the type of dude you need to get if you're the Badgers. And it looks like they're potentially going to be in a spot to close him, right? He's been to Madison. He raved about the visit. There's crystal balls to Wisconsin, which is kind of the 247 recruiting predictive rank. Like, where do they think he's going to go? This is a huge commitment. If the Badgers were to land Ernest Willor Jr., given his offer list is enormous, like blue bloods all over the place. If they were to land him, you could argue this would be the most impressive recruiting win in the last 15, 20 years. I mean, I think it's still Mertz, right? I know Justin and I, this is something Justin and I have also talked about. I think it's Mertz because he's a quarterback and was I think the number 4 pro style quarterback in the nation that year. But Mertz didn't start off that way. Like, Mertz was a 3-star guy who then blew up after he committed to Wisconsin. That makes it a little easier for Wisconsin to hold on to him. Now, they still have to fend off Ohio State. They still have to fend off Alabama and Nick Saban. And it's a quarterback, right? So I still think Mertz is probably the best recruiting win I've seen from Wisconsin in 20 years. But you could argue Ernest Willor Jr. would be that if he committed, because it's a position of need. They don't have a particular in with him. It's an out-of-state prospect. All of these things add to the degree of difficulty with Willor Jr. Boy, come Wednesday, what a big win that would be. You know we're going to be here. All right, let's get into some of your comments and questions. We're going to talk more Ernest Willor Jr. as well. This is from Bleed Badgers. The other day I had my Badgers frigate hat on. He said, love the naval hat, Ryan. No, thank you. First of all, a lot of people know I'm a veteran. So I bought myself like the Badgers naval hat. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Bleed Badgers. This is about on the Mabrey Mettauer interview we did. Tyler Strieber said, I love this kid. Great personality. Dude is going to make a lot of NIL money. So I wanted to put this up there because I think this is interesting. Part of being a quarterback, and this is not like a quantifiable trait, but there's an aura around like the best quarterbacks, right? Like from the Montanas to the Bradys to the Peytons to the Breezes, like they just have like a certain sense of swagger, confidence, and it's not the same for every one of them, but you can almost tell, right? Like you have to have a certain sense of charismatic swagger. Mabrey's got that, right? And Tyler mentioned that's going to be great for NIL for him. Agreed, but I almost look at it like, I mean, yes, that is 100% true. 100%. Not only are you a quarterback, but you look the part. I look like he's got the type of personality that I think is going to draw another talent. I look at it from that aspect from a recruiting aspect. If he lives up to the potential, right? If Mettauer lives up to the ceiling with that personality, and when you talk NIL, what is NIL really? NIL is commercial value. So a guy who could be on billboards, who could be in commercials, right? Because his swagger is going to sell if he's playing well, and that's going to lead to recruiting gains. Quite frankly, people want to play with quarterbacks that have that type of aura. And listen, that's putting a lot out there, and that's in the future. And who knows? A lot of quarterbacks never live up to their ceiling. But I'm just telling you, Tyler's point is dead on. And that NIL stuff, I look at it from also an exposure, program exposure, recruiting standpoint. Yeah, like if he hits the ceiling, he's going to be a game changer in several ways, on the field and off the field. But we got to see if he'll do it. Right. And again, it's not fair to put that on him yet. He's going to come, he's going to enroll early, which I think is huge. Then we got to see where it goes from there. Then it's a competition, right? Once you get on campus, it's a competition. We got to see how that goes. This is from Bleed Badger. He said, Mabrey, one of the most exciting recruits for me as a Badger fan I've ever seen come in. God bless. Can't wait to see you on the field. So I thought about this for a second. I was like, if I had to rank the top 3 or 4 most exciting recruits for me as a Badger, right? The players I was most excited about. Mabrey is probably in that list. Again, Mertz was as well for me. I know, I think a lot of people look back and say, nah, I remember Badger fans being incredibly excited about Graham Mertz. I mean, he was a 4-star quarterback. He went to, the All-Star game and threw like 5 touchdowns. He was unbelievable. He was on, he had his own clothing line almost coming in. Like, people were super stoked for Mertz. So Mertz is on that list for me. I remember being, let's see, who's another one? John Clay. That was kind of when I began recruiting. I remember being incredibly excited about John Clay. His high school film was absurd. I mean, just lunatically good. Andrew Van Ginkel's another one. I remember when he came in. He was a JUCO guy, but there was a clip of him in JUCO, like 40 yards away from this running back running on the sideline, and he chased him down. It looked like a cheetah chasing down a wildebeest. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I was super stoked for him. And I'll give you one more. I was really excited for Austin Kafensis. Not one of my best takes ever. He was the Gary Anderson quarterback, a 6 foot, 200 out of Sandy something, Utah. I think that's the high school. He had broke like every Utah State record. He was a dual threat guy, a javelin thrower. And then he got to campus and turns out he could play quarterback. So that's a list of players I was super stoked for. But yeah, as Bleed Badger says, Mabrey's probably in that list. Got to be. Lord Croy says, I don't think I've been this excited about a quarterback in a long time. Let's go, Mabrey. Can't wait for you to ball at Wisconsin. Let's look at the quarterbacks. So what quarterbacks have you been really excited about coming in as recruits? It's Mertz, it's Mabrey. Jack Cohn, not particularly. He was fine. And when I started thinking about this question from Lord Croy, this comment, I was like, God, it's been such a low bar, right? It's been such a low bar for Wisconsin quarterback recruiting. It's incredible we've been as good as we have been. And that's a testament to the defenses. That's a testament to the coaching in other areas. Testament, obviously, to the running game and the offensive line. But my goodness, how good this team could have been if they had just recruited quarterbacks at a Maryland level or I'm just throwing, maybe not a Maryland level, but you look at some of the recruits, man, and it's Deacon Hills and Chase Wolves. And I'm not trying to crush anybody, but there's just been major gaps, right? And yeah, so I agree that Mabrey's one of the most exciting quarterbacks we've had in a long time, but it's also, the bar has been so low for Badger fans. It's been so low. This is Eric here. He said, we may not be getting better talent to replace the guys that we have, or we'll be losing, but the players we're getting are much more athletic than the players we had. So I think yes and no. On the edges, yes. I think the linebackers, Pius, certainly. I like his athletic game a lot. Lowry, again, yeah. Those two dudes are both more athletic probably than any linebacker we had last year that was playing significant minutes. I would agree with that. Listen, Van Dyke is not more athletic than Mordecai. I don't know if we're talking about all the positions here, but certainly from an athletic standpoint, we probably take a downgrade at quarterback. Jackson coming in at tight end is certainly more athletic. And then Tyrell Henry coming in, I think is more athletic than a DK, but I don't know if he's more athletic than a Skylar Bell. Like, Skylar Bell's pretty athletic. There's a reason that dude's nickname is Juice. Didn't catch the ball really well, but he is. I think that's probably a wash athletically. All right, we're going to take one more quick break, a bunch more questions, including what should the record be next year, and is there any excuse for it to be below 8-4? Let's get into it on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for friends of the show. Welcome back to Locked On Badgers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate y'all. This is from Bucky63, and this is a question we talked about earlier. We talked about where do you put kind of the if receivers don't play better this year, is that a recruiting thing or a development thing? Same with offensive line and Jack Fickell Jr. If the offensive line doesn't play better, is that a recruiting talent thing or is that a development thing? Bucky63 says development is on the coaches. I want to see them earn their big salaries. Where is the new receivers coach? Yeah, they put out the job posting for the new receivers coach. I'm guessing Fickell probably already knows or has a short list there. I'm sure he does. I don't know who that is. You'll probably find out after the bowl game. And I agree with you. Development is certainly partially on the coaches, 100%. And they need to do better. It's as simple as that. A Hill says there's no excuse for going anything less than 8-4 with that hard schedule next year. At some point, we got to be able to win the games that are hard, and Vic has not upset a team. Yeah, it's been 1 year, but you're right. Like, eventually, you do have to win. You're not going to win. You're never going to win all the hard games, but you gotta punch back in those, right? You can't lose all of them either. So next year, 8-4. I don't know, man. When you say there's no excuse for anything less than 8-4, what if your top two quarterbacks get hurt, right? It's so hard to go into a season and say there's no excuse for something happening because, like, there was a year, I don't know, 6 years ago, Maryland lost their top four quarterbacks and they were starting a converted linebacker as their quarterback. Like, I don't think you can look at any season before it's happened and say there's no excuse for a certain record, less or better, because injuries can wreck a season. Now, I will say this: if it's another 7-5 year, even with that schedule, people are going to be frustrated, and I think they probably should be. I think 8-4 is a realistic goal to shoot for. That means maybe you lose 3 of the tough games, win one of them, and then drop another one somewhere. I don't think you can go 0-4 in the tough games next year. I think at some point you do have to trip one of those teams up. And listen, teams like USC and I know we play. I think it's Penn State next year. I'm blanking on this coach actually. Alabama, USC, Oregon. Like, they're replacing pieces too. They aren't the same team as they were. They have quarterback issues at some of those spots. So we'll see. I think 8-4 is a good goal. I'm not going to say there's no excuse before we see what happens, though, if it doesn't get to there. Forrest McGuire says, crossing my fingers, Willor gets on board. We need D linemen who can train up as well as portals. Yeah, transfer to the portal. Yeah, we talked about Willor. I agree. He would be a huge get, and you can't just be portal guys. You got to get some guys you can develop. I agree there. Playmaker says, the way I see it is this guy offsets the negatives we lose with Bell transferring. I see him replacing the production Bell gave us despite losing him. That's if we still need a true number one receiver. He's talking about the Henry transfer in, basically just losing Bell, bringing in Henry, and just kind of a 1-for-1 slot. I like this guy more than Bell. I just think he's going to be more consistent. I think the hands are going to be a little better. But I agree with you. He's not a number one receiver. And this team still lacks that number one receiver. The thing with Bell is he just dropped too many passes. I think athletically, Bell's really good. I think he's underrated. I don't think Badger fans give him enough credit as an athlete. And Henry coming in, maybe I think athletically, they're probably a wash. I'm hopeful Henry catches the ball better, right? That's where I need to see it. That said, we still need a true receiver one. 100% we do. We don't have a dude, right? And by the way, the best teams have a couple dudes. We don't have one dude right now on the edges. Maybe Pauling. Is Pauling a dude? I guess it depends on what you consider a dude. He's really good. He's a really good slot receiver, a great weapon on third down. I don't think we have a dude on the edges right now. Got to get one or two of them. You got to. Otherwise, by the way, it doesn't really matter if you get Tyler Van Dyke, if he's got no good boundary receivers to throw to and the defense doesn't respect the weapons. Like, Van Dyke's not a guy who's going to win games on his own. You need to give him help. This is from Pavel S. Wisco getting every rumored target must be a strong NIL school. I love this comment because while I don't want to speak specifically on the NIL side of it, the fact that Wisconsin's able to go, so there's so much concern, right, about Wisconsin, especially early on, their NIL department, their ability to adapt, their ability to move fluidly in this new college football ecosystem and environment. If you're a Badger fan, you don't even need to know the ins and outs, right? Think of it like this, right? It's like if you're at the end of an assembly line as a consumer and the product that's coming out looks pretty good, you have faith that the inner workings of that factory are probably pretty good. So as a Badger fan, if you see Wisconsin getting some high level transfer portal guys, a quarterback they wanted, a couple edge guys, a receiver, it probably should give you some faith that the inner workings of what Wisconsin has going on are pretty well oiled and moving efficiently, right? Does that make sense? Because these are the guys that they wanted. These are Plan A targets who have other places that they could go to. Wisconsin is getting them. Now they still have holes, and it's not perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. But I think you need to have. I feel pretty good, and I've talked to guys in the NIL department with Wisconsin. I'm telling you, we're in pretty good hands there. We really are. I would be optimistic if I was a Badger fan going forward. Oh, I hope I don't lose power. This storm is hitting me now. Bob Milborn says Connor might just not be a Big Ten player. No defense is a big problem. We all love him, but by comparison, Klesman Blackwell's story just isn't there. I think he's a Big Ten player. He hit almost 73s last year. Like, by the way, thanks, Bob, for the comment. I don't mean to jump on you with that. I think he's a Big Ten player, but he's not if he can't shoot, right? So there's the interesting thing with Connor. What is this year slump? Because if you look back at the end of last year, he slumped for the last 2 months of last year too. So who is he really? Is he the guy we saw at the beginning, or is he the guy we saw at the end of last year into this year? If he shoots the way I think he can shoot, he's a Big Ten player despite the defensive issues. But if he's shooting 28%, 25%, whatever he's shooting now, no, you're right, Bob. He's not a Big Ten player. Will R says Blackwell's the guy I want to see get more minutes. Yes, let's go, Will. You and me on that train. Clearly the better six-man or starter. You got to keep. Oh man, there's been some games this year I've pulled out my already thinning hair, seeing Gray guard with such a short leash with Blackwell. Man, I agree. Lee Herschel says Connor needs to get himself going at this point. I think that's a really good point because there is an element. If you're in the, I hesitate to use the word doghouse, but I'll give you a different story. When I was just got to my submarine, I was a knucklehead, right? Some people kind of know more about my high school story or not. The very short version of it is I was arrested a bunch of times in high school. I was on probation. I had a parole officer. I fabricated my grades to get to my parole officer so I wouldn't get in more trouble. Like I couldn't even maintain a C average. I almost didn't graduate high school. And all those problems don't magically fix themselves when you get to the Navy, right? I still had some issues I was working through. And I remember vividly, this story has a point, I promise you. I remember vividly, I got in trouble with something. I don't remember what I did, but I got in trouble with my chief. I did something I shouldn't have done, or I did something wrong. And the next time something similar happened, but it really wasn't my fault. And I told him, I'm like, hey, this wasn't my fault this time. And he looked at me and said, but it was the last time. And because of that, your rope is shorter. And that always stuck with me. I had a great chief. He's one of the biggest reasons my life kind of went in a very positive direction in the Navy. It's a similar point with Connor right now. Like he just has a much shorter leash because up to this point this year, he hasn't played well enough to earn the benefit of the doubt to get extended minutes from guard's perspective. And that's a fair perspective. I don't necessarily agree with it. Like I would like Connor to get more burn, but you got to look at it from guard's perspective as well. Connor's going to be on a shorter leash. So when he gets out there and he messes up, that rope is shorter. It just is. And he's got to put in the work to extend that rope. Right, he's got to play extraordinarily hard on defense and not have the mental lapse to show guard that I'm turning it around. I'm sick of this. I want to play because his team's better if he's engaged. It just is. This is from the Commandant. We are not a deep team. We have only 6 guys right now with Connor and no-show. Thank God for Blackwell. I don't know why it's just you and me, Commandant, on this point. Everybody keeps saying this is such a deep team. It's so much deeper. It is deeper than last year because last year was even less deep. Last year was like the puddle in the sidewalk, and this year we're in a kiddie pool. Like it is deeper this year because we added quality talent, and that's great. It's still not a deep team. I don't know what people are on with that one. This one's from Mark. He said, Ryan, you're not a logistics guy. That can be code for needing a wife. Mark had a longer comment, but I can't post it all in here because I'm limited to 200 characters. Mark, I have a wife. Like, Ryan, you're not a logistics guy. That can be code for needing a wife. I've got a wife. I'm good. By the way, the missus and I celebrated our 17th anniversary a couple days ago. So that's pretty awesome. That's a self-win. Mark, appreciate you, man. Yeah, we're all wired differently. Thank you for the comment. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. I got on the board back here. Our offenses in 6A Texas high school football better than Iowa's was. Probably. Anyway, On Wisconsin, a bunch of content coming up this week. Interviews hopefully with Grant Steck, Dylan Johnson, Thomas Heiberger, recruiting guys, Brian Smith, hopefully another recruiting guy. A ton of content coming up this week with early signing day. So on Wisconsin, appreciate y'all. Let's go. Let's go.